The 1,000-year peace is over. Aliens declare war, but humans only laugh. The humans are laughing at us, Supreme Commander Zorthak reported Lieutenant Vex, her violet skin flushing a deeper shade of purple with embarrassment. They are actually laughing. Zorthak's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of extreme agitation among the Crexian species. His upper appendages gripped the command chair so tightly that the reinforced metal began to warp. "Replay the transmission," he growled. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the face of the human representative. A female with auburn hair cut short against her skull and eyes the color of Earth's oceans. Her name was Admiral Tessa Monroe, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. "Let me get this straight," she said, not even attempting to hide the smirk playing across her lips. "You, the mighty Crexian Empire, are declaring war on humanity because we refuse to give you exclusive mining rights to an uninhabited rock at the edge of our solar system?" Zorthak's secondary heart began to palpitate. The audacity, the disrespect, the complete lack of terror. "We are the Crexian Empire," he had told her in the original transmission. "We have conquered 12 galaxies. Our warships blot out suns. Our soldiers number in the trillions. The 1,000-year peace treaty signed by your ancestors has expired, and we choose not to renew it. Surrender now, or face extinction." And what had this human done? Laughed. Actually laughed. "You realize we have been watching you guys for the past 1,000 years, right?" Admiral Monroe continued in the recording. "We have been monitoring your communications, studying your technology, analyzing your tactics. The treaty wasn't for our protection. It was for yours." The bridge fell silent. 50 of the Empire's highest-ranking officers stared at their Supreme Commander, waiting for his reaction. "She's bluffing," whispered Science Officer Krell, her voice barely audible. "They must be bluffing." "Are they?" questioned Zorthak, turning to his intelligence director. "Lormar, explain this reaction. Why aren't they cowering? Why aren't they begging for mercy? They are just one species confined to a single solar system." The director Lormar stepped forward, his exoskeleton clicking nervously. "Supreme Commander, our intelligence on humans is limited. The treaty prevented direct observation. We know they were primitive when we first encountered them. They had just achieved spaceflight. Their weapons were chemical-based. Their medicines still relied on cutting open bodies and stitching them back together." "And now?" demanded Zorthak. "We don't know," admitted Lormar. "The treaty kept us 5 light-years away from their system at all times. We have detected unusual energy readings over the centuries, but nothing conclusive. It's possible they have advanced." Zorthak snorted. "In a mere 1,000 years? Impossible. No species develops that quickly. It took us 15,000 years to achieve interstellar travel." "With all due respect, Commander," interrupted Fleet Admiral Dex, "perhaps we should send a scout ship to assess their capabilities before committing to full invasion." "Cowardice," snapped Zorthak. "From my Fleet Admiral, no less. We are Crexian. We do not scout. We do not assess. We conquer." "But Supreme Commander," persisted Dex, her facial tentacles writhing with concern, "if there's even a slight chance the human is telling the truth." "Enough," roared Zorthak, rising to his full height of 12 feet. "Prepare the armada. All ships, all warriors. We will darken their skies. We will boil their oceans. We will remind these humans what it means to face the might of the Crexian Empire." As the bridge officers scrambled to carry out his orders, Zorthak turned back to the screen, studying the human's face. Admiral Monroe was still smirking. "One more thing," she said in the recording, just before cutting transmission. "When you come, bring something interesting. We have been stuck in this solar system for 1,000 years with nothing to do but prepare for your return. We are really looking forward to seeing what you have got." The transmission ended, and Zordak felt a sensation he hadn't experienced in centuries. Was it doubt? He shook his massive head, dispelling the unwelcome feeling. Director Lormar, what is the human military capacity? Lormar consulted his datapad. Based on 1,000-year-old intelligence, they had approximately 50 million soldiers and 10,000 primitive spacecraft. And our forces? 10 trillion warriors across the Empire, with 500 million currently deployed on our capital ships. The Armada consists of 100,000 warships, each capable of reducing a planet's surface to magma. Zordak relaxed slightly. The numbers don't lie. Even if they have advanced, they can't have matched that kind of military might. There's something else, Supreme Commander, said Lormar hesitantly. He talked about the humans. Speak. In our initial assessments, we noted an unusual psychological trait. They respond to threats by becoming more aggressive rather than more submissive, and they have a strange relationship with their mortality. They know they will die, yet they act as if they are immortal. It makes their behavior unpredictable. Zordak waved a dismissive appendage. Psychological peculiarities won't save them from plasma cannons. Set course for the Sol system. Maximum velocity. As the mighty Krexian armada began to move, forming a swarm of destruction stretching across light years, Zordak couldn't shake the memory of the human's laugh. It wasn't the laugh of someone bluffing. It was the laugh of someone who knew something he didn't. And for the first time in his 300-year life, Supreme Commander Zordak felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The journey to Earth took 3 standard weeks. 3 weeks of preparation. 3 weeks of battle simulations. 3 weeks of Zordak reassuring his commanders that this would be a swift and glorious conquest. 3 weeks of trying to forget the sound of human laughter. We are approaching the edge of the Sol system, Supreme Commander, announced Navigator Zell. Pluto orbit in 5 minutes. Zordak nodded, his silver ceremonial armor gleaming under the bridge lights. He had dressed for victory today. Any sign they have detected us? Communications Officer Trill checked her instruments. Nothing, Commander. No transmissions. No defensive preparations. Their system appears completely open. Overconfidence, huffed Zordak, the most reliable harbinger of defeat. As the Armada crossed the boundary of the Sol system, every Krexian on the bridge waited for alarms for human defenders to appear, looking for anything that would explain Admiral Monroe's baffling confidence. Nothing happened. Continue approach, ordered Zordak. Maintain battle formation. The Krexian warships moved deeper into the system, passing the ice giants Neptune and Uranus without incident. When they reached Saturn, Zordak began to relax. Perhaps the humans really were bluffing. Perhaps they had simply gone insane during their 1,000 years of isolation. Supreme Commander, called Science Officer Krell suddenly. I'm detecting anomalous readings from Saturn's rings. Explain. The rings are moving, she said, confusion evident in her voice. Sections of them are changing position against orbital mechanics. Before Zordak could respond, the tactical display erupted with warnings. The rings of Saturn were breaking apart, but not randomly. They were reforming, shifting, transforming. It's not ice, whispered Krell. The rings, they are not ice and rock. They are ships, finished Zordak, watching in horror as millions know, billions of tiny craft emerged from their perfect hiding place. They had been disguised as part of Saturn's rings, indistinguishable from natural debris until they moved. Incoming transmission, announced Trill, her voice shaking. The view screen activated, showing Admiral Monroe again. She was standing on what appeared to be a bridge similar to their own, but sleeker, more advanced. Welcome to Sol, Commander Zordak, she said cheerfully. I see you brought the whole family. How thoughtful. Zordak struggled to maintain his composure. What is the meaning of this deception? Where did these ships come from? Deception? Monroe raised an eyebrow. No deception. Just preparation. As for the ships, we built them. All 10 billion of them. We had a lot of time on our hands, you know what, with the peace treaty and all. Impossible, roared Zorthak. No civilization could build so many vessels. Oh, that's right. You still build your ships by hand, don't you? How quaint. Monroe smiled. We automated that process about 800 years ago. These days, our fabricators can produce a fully functional warship every 1.3 seconds. We do the math. Zorthak turned to his tactical officer. Weapons status? All systems ready, Supreme Commander. Target their fleet and fire. Monroe sighed on the screen. Really? That's your move? All right then. The Crexian armada unleashed its fury, 100,000 capital ships firing simultaneously at the swarm of human vessels. The vacuum of space lit up with energy weapons, a dazzling display of destructive power that would have annihilated any conventional force. But the human ships moved. They didn't just evade, they danced. They twisted and turned with impossible precision, some of them accelerating at speeds that should have liquefied any organic pilot. They are not manned, realized Krell. Those ships are autonomous. Correct again, said Monroe, still watching with apparent amusement. We call them the Swarm. Fully AI-controlled. They have been running combat simulations against Crexian tactics for about 900 years now. They are pretty good at it. Not a single human vessel had been hit. Not one. Our turn, said Monroe, her smile fading. Just a small demonstration. A group of human ships, perhaps 1,000 out of the billions, broke formation and accelerated toward the Crexian fleet. They were tiny compared to the massive Crexian warships, each no larger than a planetary shuttle. Defensive screens at maximum, ordered Zorthak. The human vessels didn't fire. Instead, they simply passed through the Crexian defense screens as if they weren't there. Then they made contact with the hulls of 20 Crexian ships and phased right through the solid metal. Seconds later, those 20 Crexian warships simply came apart at the molecular level, disintegrating into clouds of component atoms. The bridge of the Imperial flagship fell silent. These shift technology, explained Monroe casually, allows our ships to temporarily exist between states of matter. We figured it out while studying quantum mechanics. It's pretty useful. Hard to defend against something that can just ignore your defenses entirely. Zorthak had no words. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was magic. Witchcraft. Science that defied comprehension. So, continued Monroe, clapping her hands together. Here's my counteroffer. You take your fleet and go home. You renew the treaty, this time for 10,000 years. And we will pretend this little misunderstanding never happened. And if we refuse? Managed Zorthak, his voice barely a whisper. Admiral Monroe's face turned serious for the first time. Then we will finish our demonstration. And the Crexian Empire will need to find a new Supreme Commander. And about 100,000 new warships. Supreme Commander Zorthak had never retreated in his entire 300-year military career. The concept was so foreign to Crexian doctrine that their language lacked a proper word for it. The closest translation was strategic repositioning for future conquest, a phrase so rarely used that most officers didn't even know it existed. Yet here he was, ordering the most powerful armada in the known universe to back away from a single star system. All ships, reverse course, he commanded, each word tasting bitter on his tongue, and maintained defensive formation. No aggressive actions. His bridge officers exchanged shocked glances but carried out his orders without question. Even the most battle-hungry among them had witnessed the molecular disintegration of 20 Crexian warships. None wished to share that fate. The human vessels are holding position, reported Tactical Officer Jex. They are not pursuing. On the view screen, Admiral Monroe nodded approvingly. Wise choice, Commander. Your ships are free to leave unharmed. This isn't over, growled Zorthak. The Crexian Empire does not surrender. Of course not, agreed Monroe with a hint of that infuriating smirk returning. You are just strategically repositioning for future conquest. We understand completely. Zorthak's upper eyes narrowed. You speak our language? We speak all 317 languages used across the Crexian Empire, she replied, including the 22 classified military dialects. A linguistic analysis was one of our early research priorities. You have been spying on us, accused Zorthak. Despite the treaty. Admiral Monroe laughed again, that same confident laugh that had haunted him for weeks. The treaty prevented us from approaching within 5 light-years of Crexian space. It said nothing about remote observation. Remote observation across thousands of light-years? Impossible. Quantum entanglement communication, she explained, as if talking to a child. Instantaneous data transfer across unlimited distances. We have had tiny observation probes scattered throughout your empire for about 950 years now. They are about the size of a dust particle, so don't bother looking for them. Zorthak felt his rage building, threatening to overwhelm his judgment. You dare mock the greatest empire the universe has ever known? Greatest? Monroe tilted her head thoughtfully. By what metric? Territory? Sure, you have got us beat there. We have stayed in one solar system. But technology? Resource efficiency? Scientific understanding? Medical advancement? I'm afraid you are lagging behind by several centuries. You lie, roared Zorthak. No species advances so quickly. Most don't, agreed Monroe. But most species don't have our particular combination of short lifespans, intense curiosity, and existential dread. We knew we might face extinction at any moment. It's remarkable what humans can accomplish when properly motivated. As the Crexian fleet continued its humiliating withdrawal, Director Lormar approached Zorthak's command chair and spoke in hushed tones. Supreme Commander, I have been analyzing the human vessels. Their energy signatures are unlike anything in our database, and their numbers, even with advanced automation, constructing billions of warships, would require resources beyond what a single solar system should provide. Your point, Director? Hissed Zorthak. I believe they have mastered matter conversion on a fundamental level. They are creating ships from raw energy, perhaps even from vacuum fluctuations. The scientific implications are staggering. Zorthak absorbed this information with growing horror. If humans could create matter from energy at will, there was no limit to their military potential. They could produce endless armadas, endless weapons, endless soldiers. Admiral Monroe, he said, forcing civility into his voice. Before we depart, I must ask, why did your ancestors sign the treaty in the first place? If not for protection, then for what purpose? Monroe's expression softened slightly. Honestly? Pity. Pity? Repeated Zorthak incredulously. Our first contact specialists determined that your species represents a developmental dead end, she explained. Your biological and cultural evolution has reached its apex. Without outside influence, you will remain technologically stagnant for millennia. Our ancestors thought giving you 1,000 years might help you advance independently, catch up a bit before we had to interact as equals. Evidently, that was overly optimistic. The bridge fell silent again. Not the silence of shock this time, but the silence of collective humiliation. Every officer, every warrior present felt the sting of her words because, deep down, they recognized the truth in them. The Empire hadn't produced a significant technological advancement in generations. Their conquest had always been about appropriating the innovations of others, not creating their own. "We will return," promised Zor-Thak, desperation making his voice crack. "We will study, we will advance, and we will return." "I truly hope you do," said Monroe, and for the first time there seemed to be genuine sincerity in her voice. "The galaxy needs the Crexians to evolve beyond conquest. There are threats out there that require cooperation, not competition. Threats that neither humans nor Crexians can face alone." Zor-Thak's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "What threats?" "In 12 galaxies we have encountered no species more powerful than ourselves." "Because they don't want to be found," said Monroe cryptically. "Not yet. But they are watching. Just as we have been watching you." Before Zor-Thak could demand clarification, the massive human fleet began to move, not toward the retreating Crexians, but into a complex formation that seemed to ripple through space itself. "What are they doing?" asked Krell, frantically checking her instruments. "I don't," began Lormar, then froze mid-sentence. "Supreme Commander, they are creating a gravitational anomaly. A massive one." On the view screen, the billions of human ships began to rotate in perfect synchronization, generating an artificial gravity well of impossible proportions. Space itself began to warp visibly. "This is just a small demonstration of what we can do," said Monroe. "A little something to remember us by." The swirling vortex of ships suddenly collapsed inward, and for a brief moment it seemed as if a new star had been born. A blinding flash forced the view screen to darken automatically. When the light faded, where billions of ships had been, now floated a perfectly formed Saturn, rings and all. An exact duplicate of the gas giant, created in minutes. "Did they just make a planet?" whispered Navigator Zell, her voice tinged with religious awe. "We will be in touch, Commander Zor-Thak," said Monroe, her image beginning to fade. "When you are ready for a real conversation about the future. Until then, I suggest you use your time wisely." As the transmission ended and the Crexian armada limped away from the Sol system, Zor-Thak remained motionless in his command chair, staring at the duplicate Saturn growing smaller on the view screen. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to be primitive. The return to Crexia Prime took 3 months. 3 months of silence and shame. 3 months of Zor-Thak locked in his quarters, reviewing everything they knew about humans, searching desperately for some weakness, some flaw in their seemingly godlike capabilities. He found none. When the Armada finally reached the Crexian homeworld, Zor-Thak expected to be stripped of his rank, possibly even executed for his failure. The Crexian Empire did not tolerate defeat. But to his surprise, the High Council requested only a private audience, away from the prying eyes of the general population. "Tell us everything," commanded Arch-Councilor Vexmar, the oldest living Crexian and nominal head of the Empire. "Leave nothing out." Zor-Thak recounted the entire humiliating encounter, the humans' laughter, the hidden fleet, the phase shift technology, the matter creation, the duplicate Saturn. With each revelation, the council members' expressions grew more grave. "And these humans claim there are greater threats than themselves?" asked Councillor Drez when he had finished. "Yes, Councillor, though they provided no specifics." "A bluff, perhaps," suggested Councillor Krell, "a tactic to prevent us from focusing our efforts on defeating them." Zor-Thak shook his head. "I do not believe so. The human admiral had no reason to fabricate such a claim. They had already demonstrated their superiority." "Then what do you propose, Supreme Commander?" asked Vexmar, leaning forward. "What course of action serves the Empire best in this unprecedented situation?" Zor-Thak had spent 3 months considering this question. His answer would determine not just his fate, but potentially the fate of the entire Crexian species. "I propose we learn," he said simply. "Learn?" repeated Vexmar. "Elaborate." "The humans were right about us," admitted Zor-Thak, the words physically painful to speak. "We have become stagnant. complacent. For 10,000 years we have conquered rather than created, stolen technology rather than developing our own. It has left us vulnerable. Murmurs of outrage rippled through the council chamber, but Vexmar raised a gnarled hand for silence. Continue. I propose a fundamental restructuring of imperial priorities, said Zorthak. Less focus on military expansion, more on scientific advancement. We must close the technological gap between ourselves and the humans. You suggest we abandon conquest, growled Councillor Traz. The very foundation of our society? Not abandon, clarified Zorthak. Postpone. For a century, perhaps two. Dedicate those resources to research and development instead. And what of the humans in the meantime? Asked Vexmar. What if they choose to leave their solar system, to conquer as we have conquered? They won't, said Zorthak with certainty. If conquest were their ambition, they would have begun 1,000 years ago. They possess a different kind of power, one we don't yet understand. The council chambers fell silent as the assembled leaders contemplated his words. And finally, Vexmar spoke. There is wisdom in your proposal, Supreme Commander. Painful wisdom, but wisdom nonetheless. The ancient Crexian's 4 eyes fixed on Zorthak. But such a fundamental shift will face resistance. Many will call it cowardice. Let them, said Zorthak firmly. I have seen what awaits us if we continue on our current path. A war we cannot win. Extinction, perhaps. I would rather suffer accusations of cowardice than lead our species to annihilation. Vexmar nodded slowly. Very well. We will put it to a vote. But first, there is one more matter to address. He motioned to a guard who activated a communication panel. Bring in the visitor. The chamber doors slid open, and to Zorthak's astonishment, a human entered. Not Admiral Monroe, but a male, tall and lean, with dark skin and close-cropped hair. He wore no military uniform, only simple clothing in earth colors. This is Dr. Jackson Webb, introduced Vexmar. He arrived yesterday alone in a vessel no larger than a personal shuttle. How did he reach Crexia Prime? Demanded Zorthak. Our defenses were quite impressive, interrupted Dr. Webb pleasantly. I particularly liked the autonomous minds in the Cygnus approach. Very creative. Supreme Commander Zorthak, I presume? Continued Webb, approaching with an extended hand. After a moment of confusion, Zorthak reluctantly extended his own appendage, and the human clasped it briefly. Admiral Monroe sends her regards. Why are you here, human? Growled Zorthak. To offer assistance, replied Webb simply. And to deliver this. He handed Zorthak a small device, no larger than a Crexian data crystal. It pulsed with a soft blue light. What is it? The complete scientific and technological history of humanity, said Webb. Every discovery, every invention, every theoretical framework from the wheel to phase shift technology. Everything except weapons, of course. Those you will have to figure out yourselves if you are so inclined. Zorthak stared at the tiny device in disbelief. Why would you give us this? Webb smiled, and Zorthak was struck by how similar it was to Monroe's expression. Not quite a smirk, but close. The smile of a species utterly confident in its position. Because evolution requires competition, explained Webb. For the past 1,000 years, humans have had none. We have advanced quickly, yes, but without external pressure, without diverse perspectives. We have become inbred, intellectually speaking. You want us as competitors? Asked Zorthak skeptically. We want you as colleagues, corrected Webb. Partners in the greater project of galactic civilization. The threats Admiral Monroe mentioned? They are real, and they will require more than just human innovation to overcome. Vexmar leaned forward again. What threats precisely? Webb's expression turned somber. There are spaces between galaxies where light behaves strangely, regions where the fundamental laws of physics flex. We have been studying them for centuries. Something is coming. Something old. Something that considers both our species nothing more than passing bacteria on a cosmic petri dish. And you believe the Crexian Empire would aid humanity against such a threat? Asked Counselor Drez incredulously. After your humiliation of our fleet? I believe you will aid yourselves, replied Webb. Self-preservation is a powerful motivator common to both our species. And I believe that given time and this, he nodded at the device in Zorthak's hand, you might actually become the allies we need. Zorthak looked down at the tiny crystal containing millennia of human knowledge. It would change everything. The balance of power within the Empire, its social hierarchies, the economic systems, their entire way of life. It would also save them from obsolescence. We accept your offering, Dr. Webb, said Zorthak finally. And your challenge. And your challenge. Webb nodded, seemingly satisfied. Excellent. In that case, I'm authorized to propose a new treaty. Not one of separation this time, but of limited cooperation, scientific exchange, cultural dialogue, preparation for what's coming. In military matters? Asked Zorthak cautiously. Webb's expression turned serious again. Let's just say that how quickly we share our defensive technologies will depend entirely on how quickly you abandon your offensive ambitions. The implication was clear. The humans were offering a path forward, but not unconditional trust. That would have to be earned. As the Council debated the terms of this unprecedented treaty, Zorthak found himself studying the human, not with hatred or resentment now, but with curiosity. How had they advanced so quickly? What drove them to explore rather than conquer? What could the mighty Crexian Empire learn from a species confined to a single solar system? And most puzzling of all, why did they still laugh in the face of threats? Even now, as Webb caught his gaze, there was that same hint of amusement, that same inexplicable confidence. Perhaps, Zorthak reflected, that would be the first mystery they would solve. The peculiar psychology of a species that responded to declarations of war not with fear, not with anger, but with laughter. For the first time since his humiliating retreat from Earth, Zorthak felt something new stirring within him. Not thirst for vengeance, not shame, but something he hadn't experienced since his youth, when he'd first looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. Curiosity. And as Dr. Webb began explaining his proposal for joint research initiatives, Zorthak found himself, against all odds, looking forward to the future. A future where perhaps the Crexian Empire might become something more than conquerors. Something worthy of standing alongside humanity when the real war began.